By the way, when I became an actuary, I had no ambition to be the CEO of a company. It wasn't in my mind.
Oh.
I was doing the work, and I wanted to. I just wanted to do the work well, and I would think maybe I could do my boss's job, and that's, I must say, that was as far as I was thinking in terms of ambition. But then, having gotten to the point where I am and started to be, some years ago now, more than 25 years ago, what I found was the actuarial training was absolutely the best training I could have gotten to be the CEO, because if you did it right and you learned what you needed to learn, and I don't mean just what's in the syllabus, right? But you learn what you needed to learn to really be truly a professional. That means that business acumen side in those days wasn't being tested very much. But if you did that, really got a thorough understanding of the business in all its forms, in all its guises, whether it's accounting or claims or underwriting, then you came to the table better training than anybody else at that table, because they maybe had one element. Maybe they were an underwriter, but they had no idea what the claims department did, et cetera. So if you have aspirations to be more than an actuary, being an actuary is a good start. Where to start? I'm Brian Duperreault. Just as we're doing this, I have stepped down as the CEO of AIG and now am the executive chair. I've done that since 2017. Had a career that began in 1973 when I came out of the Army, and saw I was looking for work and found out there was something called actuarial science, and they hired people who had math backgrounds. I had a math background, so that's how I got started in the business. So I've been in the business 40, you pick the number, but I'd like it to be 50 years, but it's only about 48. But it's still going, so still going. And it's been a wonderful career for me. So I spent more time probably running companies than I ever did as an actuary, but it was a great training for me.
Why don't we start at the beginning? Because it's something that perhaps the audience can relate to. Mm-hmm. As you said, you started out, you were a math major, you found out about actuarial science, and you found a company that took on actuarial trainees. And I think I saw you say in an interview that you met people who were just full of energy. I assume they were actuaries.
I had put my resume out. I was coming out of the Army. It was a bad time, 73, a long time ago. It was a recessionary period. People weren't being hired. We actually had inflation in those days, believe it or not. And so I had sent this resume to what turned out to be a subsidiary of AIG. And I didn't even know AIG existed. I just found this subsidiaries, had an actuarial training program. They were out of Pittsburgh, believe it or not. I was living in New Jersey. I said, well, if we got to go to Pittsburgh to be I need a job. And the primary thing was I needed a job. And I got this phone call from somebody at a company called AIG. And I just thought, wow, I thought, maybe, is that a CIA front company? I mean, it just didn't sound like, an insurance company. But I said, okay, yeah, sure. You got my resume. So come in for an interview. And I came into New York and I did not know what actuaries did. I really didn't. I mean, I read something about it, but frankly, and by the way, I didn't take statistics. It was all theoretical math that I was doing, topography and things like that. So I wasn't sure even, how the process would work. So I went in and interviewed in this dump. The offices were terrible, and I had better furniture in the Army. But anyway, in this dump, in this very inhospitable place, there were these men and women working very hard with just so much energy. They seemed to be having so much fun. I didn't know what they did. I didn't know what an actuary did. I didn't know what AIG was, but I thought, wow, you know, they made me an offer, and I thought, you know, they seem to be enjoying themselves, seem young and an exciting place. And I made a decision with my heart, not my head, and I took the job, and I never looked back. And I found that over the years, listen to your heart. Listen to your heart.
That's great advice. Thank you. You paint a very vivid picture there. Tell me about, did you enjoy being an actuary? I know it wasn't for very long. Were you always itching to get into this?
Yeah, I started in 73, and in 81, I moved out of it. So I was there for about 8 years doing work. The first year, actually, I wasn't even in the actuarial department. I was assigned to learn the insurance business, and I was working as an underwriter, learning how to underwrite directors and officers liability insurance, as an example, when I think we had 4 underwriters, and they might have been the only 4 D&O underwriters in America at AIG. So it was kind of heady times, as we were learning and doing, and it was a lot of fun, but I wasn't doing actuarial work. And so I went back after a year of that, and my boss, a guy named Bob Sandler, said, okay, look at, we want you to be the reserve actuary. And, I'm taking the exam, so we didn't get to that yet. So I go, okay, right. Like, what is that anyway? So explain what you do, and I think they gave me a copy of Born Ferguson. And in those days we had printouts. So this IBM machines, and they printed all these numbers on these large pieces of paper that were folded over, and you hung them on a rack. So you might go look in the archives or look in, ancient history, and you could find that there were these things, printouts. And so I had this data that was the makings of triangles, accident year triangles. And I had the book in one hand and a pencil in the other, trying to figure this out as I went along. So it was, particularly IG in those days, it was just so much fun because we were just doing things. I mean, you just do it, okay, Brian, I want you to be the reserve actuary for AIG, okay. And I went and did it, and I figured out how to do the triangles and projections and analysis. And, you had to learn the business. I always believe that, that actuaries who don't really understand what's going on in the company don't have a chance of coming up with a good answer, because the numbers don't yield their secrets so easily. You really have to get underneath it and understand where they came from, how were they produced, what does it really mean, what are these things that we, these numbers on a page, what do they really represent? And so in that process, I learned what the claims department was doing. I learned what the underwriters were doing or not doing, and how the reinsurance worked. You had to understand the reinsurance to understand gross and net. And so it just was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And I did that for a little while, but then what happened was I became the boss, and that, when you say, did you enjoy being an actuary? Really, when I stopped doing that work and became the boss, I stopped, I guess, really applying the trade, because I had people working for me who were doing the actuarial work, and I was supervising them. So it was a little bit different. And frankly, I like being the boss. I got to tell you the truth. I really enjoyed it. So, I could supervise them and guide them and help them. Most of them were smarter than me anyway, so better they do the work. And so, yes, I enjoyed it. It was a great learning experience for me. And look at doing the first reserve analysis for the company using more better techniques, and developing them and then doing it in a more granular way, by profit center by profit center, really trying to get down to it was just fun. I mean, it was exploratory, innovative, and I think in those days we probably were a little ahead of everyone else. So that was fun. But then I got to be the boss, and that was fun. And then I was asked, hey, would you like to go do something else, like manage a whole bunch of different departments, including the actuarial department? And that was fun too. So yeah, but I did enjoy the profession. I took the exams until I had so much responsibility. I had one exam left, never finished it. One of the great regrets of my life.
Please.
It was credibility. It was the credibility one. I have no idea how it's all divided up these days in terms of exam numbers, but it was number 9 on the hit list, and I had passed 10, and I had that one to go. Never did, so I never became a fellow. So yes, that was you have great regrets in life. I would have loved to become a fellow, but that's life. My responsibilities took me in a different direction.
Great. And you said a few things there I want to follow up on. So the first one is that it's critical that an actuary really understands the business. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice there on how actuaries can do that?
Well, I think you have to you have to get up and get out. I mean, you can't just sit by the screen. You have to go talk to people and ask them and truly be inquisitive. In other words, don't come in with preconceived ideas about things. It's an investigative process you're going through to understand, right? So you should listen and learn first. Some people are better at it than others, but if you can do it, just getting out and talking to people, going around, talking to claims. If you're doing what I did, which was reserves, you better understand how the claims department operates, because they run in cycles. They speed up claims and they slow down claims. They put up too much or they put up too little. I mean, they're constantly shifting like the sands. And if you don't understand what cycle you're in that process, you can undershoot or overshoot the mark. And I think you'll never know unless you go ask them. You'll never know. And then what kind of business is being put on the books is another thing. You better go talk to the underwriters about what they're thinking and doing, and where they're going with their book and what the prices are like, because if you're using, premiums as some kind of an indicator, you better understand how powerful that premium is. Is it underpriced or overpriced? And so I'm just going on, but you got to get out and do it. You just got to get up, push the chair away from your desk and walk outside and talk to them.
So as you mentioned, I think you've been in the industry for 48 years. Yeah, that's incredible. And I think you have a really unique vantage point, especially when it comes to data and analytics in this industry, right? And how that has changed over the last 50 years. How have you seen that evolve, how the industry uses data and analytics over time? Let's start there.
Well, I just described the early days of my career were pretty simple sets of data and projection techniques were developing, but there were I would say we were using the science that had evolved, and much of it was retrospective. The past repeats itself kind of thing. And, where, there are certain things where that's true, it's fairly predictive, but not completely. When we got into, the kind of business that AIG was doing then and people are doing now, much of it is new ground, In other words, there is no past. Or if there is a past, it's not very predictive of the future because things are changing so dramatically. And I think the modeling and efforts around that I think are good, but there's still, I think, too much past is the predictive, is the most predictive data point you can get, whereas you really have to start thinking about prediction in a different way. In other words, trying to find correlations and other things which might give you a better indication of what is going to be the truth of tomorrow, right? So it's evolved, but I don't think it's evolved nearly enough. And I don't think, from what I can see now, this is Brian Duperreault talking, not as a practicing actuary. And so I stand to be corrected at any time. But I just don't think we've embraced as an industry the kind of predictive analytics that other industries have embraced. And shame on us, because it's a continuous learning process we should all go through. And they're just things that you cannot figure out. They're hard enough as it is, right? But the past is definitely not is not what's going to be indicated going forward. And so I just think we need to evolve as an industry, and particularly as an actual profession, in embracing all types of modeling and prediction, and not just rely on some of the standard tried and true methods of the past.
Got it. Why do you think it has been so hard for us to evolve, perhaps as an industry? And if you have any comments on the profession, happy to hear that too.
I don't know. I mean, professions, I think, can tend to stay in their swim lanes, and we self-administer, we develop our own body of knowledge. It's actuarial produced, tend to be actuarial thinking, and then we test ourselves on all this. And so it's a bit self-contained, I guess, in a sense. And I don't think we are encouraging people to reach out and try something else. And by the way, the new stuff doesn't necessarily work either, right? So there is a, I think a natural caution, appropriate caution to say, wait a minute, I mean, we've got to, if it's a reserve, you got to certify it. Are we going to do that with what we know has worked, generally speaking, and is acceptable? Because we all want to make sure we're doing something that's acceptable and peer reviewable, or did we go out on a limb with something that isn't? So innovation in the actuarial profession, I don't think has been encouraged, frankly. But I don't think the actuaries are alone here, I think all professions tend to be that way. So I wouldn't beat ourselves up, but I think we should just recognize that there is this need, I think, to keep innovating and reaching into other areas of science, and take what we think works best for us.
Yeah, Ryan, I would agree with you there, especially sitting where I am as a data scientist as well as an actuary. And I think that leads me then to my next question. More and more insurers are hiring both actuaries and data scientists. And do you see that is perhaps because, as a profession, we haven't really kept up with the latest analytical techniques, and hence this need to sort of branch out and look at other, it's not a profession, but other types of people with those capabilities?
Well, I think running a company, you're constantly looking for an edge, and if you're not getting it from the actuaries, you're going to go get it from somebody else. And so I think it's kind of natural that companies would do what they can to get a better understanding of their book and how it's being put together and how it competes with others. So it doesn't surprise me. Is it a shot at the actuaries to some degree? Yeah. I mean, when I showed up 48 years ago, as we talked about, the actuaries were the place to go. We were the ones that were giving that much needed analysis to senior managers, so to make better decisions. And we were the go-to people in the company in that regard, not the accountants or anybody else. And then we're losing that high ground. That's not good.
Yeah, Brian, I think this is something we've been thinking about as leadership within the Casualty Actuarial Society. And because of that, we do have a new envision future and a new strategic plan that I wanted to get your reaction to as well. So let me just make sure I have it right. So the new envision future says that our members, the CS members, are sought after globally for their insights and ability to apply analytics to solve insurance and risk management problems. Now, to really appreciate the sentence, it probably helps to see what it used to be, right? So what our envision future used to be, was that we would be recognized globally as the premier organization advancing the practice and application of casualty actuarial science and educating professionals in casualty actuarial practice.
Oh, I like the change.
Yeah, you do?
Do I have a vote on this? I vote yes.
Great. What do you like about the change?
Well, because it's so much more, action and what you do and how you make a difference as opposed to promoting yourselves. Like I said, self-containment, which is the old statement. It was more really like, we got to keep going, and this one is we need to help. We do things. It's a much more action-oriented mission statement. I like it a lot. I think it's very good. If that's your work, good work.
Thanks. What we're looking for in terms of the skill sets for someone who fulfill this, and I wanted to share this with you as well and get your reaction, is that our members going forward need 3 key skill sets. 1, advanced analytics, basically the skill sets you need just to solve problems in insurance with data and analytics. Number 2, business problem solving and having those commercial skills. And number 3, domain knowledge for us in P&C insurance, right?
Right.
And someone with all 3 skill sets, we think that's really the ideal CAS member that we want to shoot for.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, I like, obviously, poker stakes is the analytics. But this, the business side of it, I think is I'm glad you put it in because, back to my earlier statements, but I just think you cannot be effective. Remember, we're all sales people at the end of the day, right? We're selling. In the case of this whatever analytical work you've done, well, if nobody looks at it, it's kind of a waste of time. So you have to get people to look at it. You have to get people to understand it and accept it, and that's selling. You're just selling your work. So we're all selling it, somehow, one way or the other. And you can't get that across if there's no context. If you don't understand the business side of what it was you were doing, there's no context to it. The greatest work in the world, which doesn't have any bearing on anything that's useful, will sit on the bookshelf and never be read. It may be great, but if you don't get anybody to read it, it's just one person's work and doesn't affect anybody else. So I think that business side of it, I thought when I studied the actual work, and by the way, when I became an actuary, I had no ambition to be the CEO of a company. It wasn't in my mind.
Oh.
I was doing the work, and I wanted to. I just wanted to do the work well, and I would think maybe I could do my boss's job, and that's. I must say that was as far as I was thinking in terms of ambition. But then, having gotten to the point where I am and started to be, some years ago now, more than 25 years ago, what I found was the actuarial training was absolutely the best training I could have gotten to be the CEO, because, if you did it right and you learned what you needed to learn, and I don't mean just what's in the syllabus, right? But you learn what you needed to learn to really be truly a professional. And that means that business acumen side in those days wasn't being tested very much. But if you did that, really got a thorough understanding of the business in all its forms, in all its guises, whether it's accounting or claims or underwriting, then you came to the table better training than anybody else at that table, because they maybe had one element. Maybe they were an underwriter, but they had no idea what the claims department did, et cetera. So if you have aspirations to be more than an actuary, being an actuary is a good start, a very good start.
That's a great perspective. I never thought about it that way. And just following up on that, then, do you have any advice for actuaries who are looking to get into the business? Like, how do you make that transition? Well,
yeah, I think one, you need to, as I said, do the hard work of really filling out that business side of it. be the good, be a good actuary. So before you want to do something else, do this right. So do the actuarial work right. I think be a part of the management team. And I think, we always worry about this separation. Can we truly be independent in our analysis? We're too close. But you have to walk that line, because you can't do the analysis unless you're close enough without going over the edge to understand what's going on. If you want to look over the edge and see what's going on, you got to get up to it. And if you don't get up to it, you don't have a clue. So, this work of being part of the team process, because you're really trying to make the company move in the right direction, doing your bit, that helps too, because I think you then become more of a team member as opposed to the independent, separate. I'm not going to involve myself with you, and my opinion will be then better received. It won't be. First of all, it won't be well constructed to start with. And it won't be received very well either, because you're kind of aloof. So if you get into that process, so there you are. Now you're a team member. People accept you as part of the business management of the company without losing your true independence. So far, so good. And then you better be open to things, right? And whatever it is you're interested in, you need to be open. And sometimes that means taking a step back, so you could be very high in the actuarial side of the business, but in order to progress, you need to move into another part of the business where you won't be so high. And so you might have to take a step back to go forward. Well, some people can do it, some people can't, and I can understand that. But I think you've got to be open to that. And so, stretch assignments is, kind of the buzz, whereas these days, but that's basically what I'm talking about. Take a stretch assignment, take an assignment that you as an actuary never thought you would do, I mean, I'm running claims departments. I had all kinds of crazy jobs I never thought I'd do, but because I didn't plan it, they just came along. I did them to the best of my ability. And I think that's the other thing is when you're in a company and you have aspirations to really rise, then you need to be appreciated, and you can be best appreciated if you're prepared to work and do things. I don't mean dirty work, but do things that people wouldn't necessarily want to do. And you say, I don't know. I mean, this is really going to help my career. Well, it's helping the company. It probably will help your career. I guess that's the way to put it.
Got it. So, Brian, I'm hearing a lot that, get out of your comfort zone, take those stretch assignments.
Right.
Did you approach things fairly fearlessly? Because I find it so interesting for you to say that you never aspired to be CEO.
Yeah, well, it's not that I didn't have a big ego. So I have to say there were a couple of them I go, wow, I don't know. I just don't know about this. But you just go do it, you do it. And I think to me, the other thing was, you can't do it alone, so when you're doing something, right, it's not like you're out the only person, you against the world. You really need a team of people to actually get it done. And if you don't have a great team of people, you could be the best person in the world, you're going to fail, right? So what I tried to do, and like I said, I like being a boss, I like to manage, and I like building teams, and that was always my first step. It's like, okay, who can I put together to get this thing done? What do I need? What kind of people do I need? And then I would go and get as good a group of people as I could and get us all focused on the job. And then it got a lot easier. I got to tell you, it gets a lot easier when you have a group of people working together. So I'm fearless. I don't know. I hope I had my eyes open. But I just tried to tackle a job and figure out, okay, what do I need to make this thing work? And it's usually a lot of help.
Got it. And maybe when I think about the actuaries and the actuarial profession, even if you look at our professionalism documents, they do say things like, are you qualified to do this work? you're qualified, if you've worked with somebody who has experience in doing this work and you've done it before. And it can make us unnervous to sort of step out of what we actually, think, believe we're competent at, right? So yes, like heading up claims or heading up a business unit would definitely fall in that bucket. But I think you're saying you don't have to know it all. You can get support from your team.
Yeah, I think that's also, one of the fallacies, I think in this, whether you're qualified or not. And that is, like, when I'm the CEO of the company, I had of human resources, I have a financial officer, I have a general counsel, on and on and on, right? All professions, chief actuary, all professions. So I couldn't do what the CFO does. I can't do what the general counsel does. I can't do what the chief actuary does even anymore. But that wasn't my job. My job wasn't to do their job. My job was to make sure they were doing their job. Okay, and there's a difference here, right? So even when you're the head, say you're the head of a profit center, okay, then that profit center is composed of a lot of capabilities in it. You'll have an underwriter. You should anyway, somebody that you can rely on and on and on. And so I think when you're taking these assignments on, you're not asked to be the actuary anymore, even if the actuary is a part of your remit. And so are you qualified? It's your leadership skills that begin to be the qualification you need, right? Not the technical skills. And I think that's another mistake that people make, even when you're the actuary within a group and you become the chief actuary, you're not the actuary, even though you're the chief actuary. You have people who are doing that work for you. Your job is to get them to be good, right? And so I find lots of people, and it's not just the actuaries, accountants, a lot of them, they get promoted because their technical skills are so high. Mm-hmm. So when they get to that job, they look at the work being done by others, and guess what? It's not as good as their work. Well, yeah, that's why you got the job, because you were the best of them. But your job is not being them anymore. Your job is to get them to be better, right? And so what are you qualified to do? Are you qualified to lead a group of people? So the skill set of leadership, that's one thing I don't think we develop as an industry, as a profession. This whole, question of how do you lead people? You were going to talk about diversity, inclusion, and all that, and that's all part of it. Which is how do you put a group of people together and get the most out of them, and what's your responsibility in that process? And that's if you worry about why you're qualified, I worry more about that. Are you qualified to lead? Do you have the leadership skills that one would need to do the job right? Worry about that more than the technical side, because you're not going to be you stop being the technician at some point in life, and you are unfortunately the generalist.
Got it. No, that's that's really good to hear from you, Brian. Thank you. And do you feel like it sounds like the leadership skills are pretty fungible then from different types of leadership jobs. Is that right?
I think they are. Look at it. Mm-hmm. It's not like I wouldn't go lead an aircraft manufacturing company. There's still that subject matter expertise you referred to in what actuaries need to have in the P&C business.
Yeah.
But I think generally within that context, yes, there's leadership skills which are universal, regardless of what team you're leading, and those skill sets do translate. They do transfer. Subject matter expertise will still be important, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, it'll still be around as a need. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So I know we're running out of time. So let me let me move on. I know that you have done a lot to promote the insurance industry as being an industry that should be rewarding and meaningful for people to work in. Mm-hmm. So tell me more about why that's so important to you.
Well, it's in different guises. I mean, I've spent some time over the last 5, 6, 7 years looking at the way we're recruiting people into the insurance industry.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't been doing a great job. I mean, we always talk about the war on talent. I've been hearing the war on talent for the 48 years I've been in the business. It never ends. The war never ends.
Hmm.
And we're okay, but we're not great, maybe, at getting the kind of talent we need. I think sometimes we're very good in entrepreneurial talent. People don't give us credit for that as an industry. But some skill sets, data science, et cetera, maybe one of them, we're not as good at. And I said, I don't get it. Well, I do get it, but how do we solve it? And we're not appreciated for the interesting things that we do. I mean, when you actually sit down and say, what do? You go, wow, that's pretty cool. You know, I mean, when I used to go recruit a long time ago now, but when I recruited in college, I never told them I was in the insurance business. I told them I was a professional gambler, which always got their attention. But, you know, using that analogy to say, you know, there's a lot of similarities. We're taking risk, you know, we can win, we can lose. We have to understand what the odds are, on and on and on. But in order to really do it, it's not like poker, you know, where it's pretty set game. I mean, you know, the amount of information is so much more complex. Think about what you have to do in order to do it right. You have to be you've got to be a psychologist. You have to understand people. You've got to be numeric. You have to have an insatiable interest in everything that happens in the world, because you have to understand, you know, how vaccines get put together or how a hotel runs, and you know it runs the gamut. And if you're doing it right, you know, it's just. Oh, it's so fun. It's just so much fun, you know, and rewarding and interesting and demanding. And would you rather be a data scientist, you know, getting people to put more ads, you know, in some site, or would you rather solve world problems? That's why, to me, we're helping the world, you know, get through some pretty difficult situations. Or you could do, you know, or you could work on some dumb thing like that, you know, or do you apply your data science to make rich people richer? Or do you do solve problems in the world? And if we present it right, I think you could get a lot of attention. So I thought, you know, how do we do that? Now, me talking about this is one thing. You know, having people just enter the business, young people just discovering this wonderful world that they stumbled into. They didn't have a clue themselves, but you can't believe how cool it is here. You know, get them out talking. So that was one aspect of my interest in this, and of course diversity and inclusion's been another big thing for me, to try and get you know, better, you know, just a better diversity in our business. You know, that it's, you know, to me it's morally wrong. It's stupid from a business point of view. It doesn't work in any way. I mean, there's no good thing you can say about it. Not having it, I guess is the way to put it. And so I just thought, you know, I'm leading a company. It's important that I lead the company in this way too. And then, of course, when you have that bully pulpit as a leader of a large company, you can, you know, you can speak out in a broader way. And so I do that too. Yeah,
you sound really passionate about it. And I agree with you. This is how I am one of those people that goes out to the universities and talks about the profession. And that's pretty much exactly what I say as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, you're good.
Yeah. And look, we're doing a lot at the CAS on diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it's still not enough, I'll say. So just, I'm not sure if you're aware, but our diversity statistics, they're not where we want them to be. So just 3% of the profession is Black or Hispanic.
Yeah.
Right. Which is even compared to the insurance industry. I'm looking at the stats.
Yeah, it's low. It's low in a bad situation, which is our own statistical analysis. Right. We're 7 or 8, maybe. I don't know. We're very low.
Yeah. And the actuarial profession is even lower.
Of course.
So it's not something to be proud of. And we have put a target in the sand. So we want to increase this to 13% of new members in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's a goal we have in place. But it's not an easy problem to solve. And certainly as we think about our members, because it takes a long time to be an actuary, right? So any activities that we do now will take a good, 7 years at least to pay off.
Right, but if you started it 7 years ago, you'd start to get the payoff now. So get started.
Yeah, exactly. So this is definitely something where we're looking to push on hard. Great. So let me look to wrap up, and really my question is, what is next for you, Ryan?
Well, I still have a job. I'm the executive chairman of AIG, and I'll do that at the end of this year. And then after that, I agreed to stay on in the company, and not on the board of directors, but stay on the company and do that. And after that, I don't really know. I don't know. I haven't worried about it before. I'm not going to worry about it now. I'll have stay involved. Retirement to me is just doing something else. Just finding something else to do. I mean, your body and your mind need to be active at all times, and so it's just where you're going to devote yourself the next time around. I found when I retired, this will be the third time when I retire this time. So I'm good at retiring, not good at staying retired. But I found just I just moved on to something else, or something else found me, and. As long as you stay active, the world is pretty interesting. There are plenty of interesting things for me to do.
Yeah, you've certainly proven that a few times. So I'm very interested to see what that will be.
Yeah, probably not running something. I think I've done that enough. More helping people rather than doing it myself.
Got it. Okay. And then, Ryan, I don't know if there are anything else you wanted to share that I didn't get to ask you.
No, look, I do think that I'm encouraged by what I've heard from you today about the profession. It's near and dear to my heart. I'm where I am because I said it was a great training ground for me, and I didn't like some of the direction we were going. I like the fact that we're embracing data science, understanding the role in the business, getting all that. So I'm just encouraged by it, and I encourage you to continue along those lines, because it'll make it a better profession, and you'll stay relevant. You'll stay relevant. The world doesn't, the actuarial profession doesn't have to be on this earth. There's no God-given reason why you have to be here. So you have to earn it, and you earn it by continuing to be relevant. Yeah,
no, I completely agree with you. And it's good to hear that feedback from you. Yeah, particularly from the experience. Thank you.
I encourage you to do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time.